Dearest gentle listeners, you are listening to the Ladies Bridgerton, the talk of the town. We are your effervescent hosts, your neighborhood-friendly Kiwi, Tash from Middle-earth, New Zealand.
And Patty, Regency romance enthusiast whose current chapter of her story takes place in Ohio.
Settle down onto your favorite settee as we delve into the lives of the elite and illustrious ladies, lords, and royalty of the ton. This Bridgerton podcast is two friends talking romance, symbolism, Easter eggs, and deep diving into the connections of our favorite characters. We cover both book and TV series and notable social media, and therefore will contain spoilers.
Dearest listeners, this episode, we watch Eloise and Cressida's friendship in bloom. Prudence and Dankworth share a windswept canoodle. Fife is trying to steal Colin's friend. And we borrow the Baroness from Sound of Music to portray Lady Tilly Arnold. This is the Bridgerton lovers era, as all love interests and their competition are blown in like a force of nature. Now, Tasha and I are ready to fly at a moment's notice as we threw this recording time in around life, and life.
Very, very much. We attempted to record yesterday, but unfortunately my son came back from a school fair with his grandparents, quite unwell, with a 39.5 degree fever, and for the Americans out there, about roughly a 104 kind of fever. So safe to say that this mama was deep in the cleaning equipment when food no longer wanted to be in his stomach. So that was a fun evening for me. We were supposed to start recording about 2 hours ago, but as I went to sleep with my son at 4:30 in the morning for a second day in a row because he was up with a sore tummy, safe to say that I was pretty tired and slept through my alarms, and our patient Patty over here is just waiting for this mama to get her stuff together. Now we must make haste into today's episode.
So just a couple of things. You guys are going to have a different, Patty probably won't be pandemonium today because we're recording in the middle of my afternoon. So I'm actually medicated for my ADHD. You will see if you can tell the difference between 4 in the afternoon and 10 o'clock at night. And two, I just want to shout out Di, who just got back from her cruise and she won the Bridgerton trivia.
Oh my God, Di!
Yay! She showed us in the chat, and that is
flowers.
One of our people.
Did she say whether or not she did an acceptance speech and said, "Thank you to the Ladies Bridgerton, you've taught me all that I know"?
Well, and she said, like, I've done Carnival Cruise Line trivia, and they're usually pretty good about, like, if it's about a TV show or a movie that's based on a book, they did, like, the reason she won is because they did book content trivia too.
Oh, brilliant.
So because we are both book, and I'm not taking all of your flowers, Di, but
no,
she's a book and show girly, and this proves to you why being a book and show girly is.
Yeah, I don't like when I've gone to Harry Potter trivia and it's just based on the movie, because like my brain can't separate book and movie, you know. So for book and movie, the books in the movie are way more similar for Harry Potter than what they are for. I mean, I could literally,
except for The Goblet of Fire, which is my favorite book, and the movie ticked me off.
Honestly, I could do an entire podcast just on the differences between them, but like the overall vibe is the same. Like it's not like Bridgerton where they've changed completely everything. I think my biggest gripe with
the story is still the same. Just like I needed the Voldemort reveal to be Ginny, more like the book.
I needed Ginny to not bend down and tie up Harry's shoelaces and then kiss, because
I didn't need a 30 million CGI dragon on the loose. That doesn't happen in the book. You wasted $30 million on that when you could have done the wands connecting, and that could have been so much more.
I thought we liked a dragon.
I do like dragon, but not when it takes away from how I felt when Voldemort came back.
We could have had Peeves. We could have had Peeves for that money.
Right?
All right. We need to jump back to the point because I need to stay on track. That's why I stopped talking. This is my tangent Tash going on the loose today. Apologies. Okay, yeah, because I literally sorry, Di, I haven't actually even looked at your win for the day.
And And guess what else? Since I get to tell you, you didn't see, when
Yeah.
she was sailing out of Australia, they were commenting on these climbers that were climbing up the bridge. Guess who it was? Johnny Bailey.
Really?
Yes, the picture, she saw the picture of Johnny Bailey doing it, and her cruise ship is in the background. She didn't know it was him at the time, but
Oh
she
my
watched Johnny
God.
Bailey climb the bridge.
Di is pictured with Jonathan Bailey.
Sort of. I was like, oh,
I,
so close yet so far away.
I would frame it, Di. I'd frame it. You say, look, this is a
Like,
picture of
there's
me and
me.
Johnny.
I'd put an arrow to a part of the ship where you were at. I'd be like, there I
I would 100% like roll on that. We've met, we're in the same picture together. Can't you see?
am. Johnny Bailey took a picture with me.
Yeah.
That's how I would be.
I mean, we love a queen that knows how to spin. All right.
Yeah.
You got all the goss today. I literally, because I was up all night, I literally woke up and realized that I was meant to be recording with Patty and Arrow before my alarms. Obviously, my husband said that they went off, and I talked to him, and apparently I was so shattered I fell back asleep and don't recall any of it. So I didn't get to read any of my chats this morning or catch up on anything. Speaking
All
of
right.
catching up, let's look at Eloise and Cressida on their little gossip catch-up session as they walk through. They promenade. They don't walk. Ladies don't
No.
walk. They promenade as they promenade through Hyde Park.
Well, I think ladies do walk. I think promenading is usually for couples, but they're definitely promenading, in my
Well,
opinion.
I mean, there is a whole faction of fans that think that Cressida is in love with Eloise, so that would get
Well, and
promenading.
my first whole tangent here is Cressida has so much armor on, she doesn't even know who she is anymore, because we
Yes.
remember her from Stowell House talking to her mother, and her mother suggesting doubling to her, and her mother
It
pretty much
wasn't
pushing
a
her,
suggestion, yeah.
insisting, yeah. And then she's like, she's made the decision. This was all her. Nobody else decided for her.
And most of
And then
all, he's my choice.
yeah. And we also see in her clothing, she is reflecting Eloise.
Hmm.
This one isn't so much like in when she met up with her after Penelope public embarrassment, where she's wearing Bridgerton blue.
Hmm.
But she definitely has, she's done up in all the flowers. She wants to be, I don't know, a bouquet. But I looked at her necklace, and because I've noticed like her theming for necklaces.
Or maybe it's that she's a rose and she's still got her thorns. Because it is
True.
roses on her shoulders that are like in chiffon
Yeah,
as
the
roses.
flowers around her neck are not roses. They're
No.
just appliques. They're similar to the appliques on Penn's episode 1 dress,
Yes.
but they're just the bluey, pinky, purpley colors that she's wearing in the dress. But her necklace is this like, it's like a wreath that's going around whatever that soft spot is, that where they put trachea. I don't know what that's called.
Trachea.
Um,
The trachea. Your outer
well,
trachea.
well, whatever, the soft spot that's between your collarbone. They sit there. If you look at after the church scene, in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton episode, she's wearing something similar that's got a hole there. And I think that is supposed to represent she does have a soft spot, because that's a soft spot. But the rest of the necklace is bows. There's a bow above the wreath and there's a bow below it. And we know that Eloise her costuming is all bows. She wears bows around the neck. She's got a crisscross on her neck in this scene that's reminiscent of a bow.
Your jugular.
Okay, so the only way you're going to take Cressida out, her only soft spot is her jugular.
That sounds about right.
Sounds about right.
This actually sounds very alien vs predatory.
Well, I mean, the way she very much underestimates Penelope in this conversation as a true competitor.
Very much. I'm what is it? I'm just as resolved to be kind to Penelope as you are. But come on, like come on, it's Penelope.
She even says,
she's
like
pathetic. Like that's very much
like
the vibe.
Penelope. Like she does this little laugh.
Yes.
Like she just doesn't see. And then Eloise has to tell her, like, Penelope's not as defenseless as you think. And she's like, neither am I.
And the funny thing is Eloise is specifically referring to the fact that she's Lady Whistledown, but I don't actually know how much Eloise has seen Penelope sparring off with her siblings then, because I presume that she has, because the way that Eloise words it, well, not the words, the intonation of it just sounds very much like she's Lady Whistledown. You don't know. She's got claws.
Yeah.
Penelope has claws, not just Lady
Well, and I'll
Whistledown.
tell you,
Penelope just doesn't take the claws out for anyone,
here's my
except for her
thing.
siblings.
Eloise got a nount at Featherington House.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought, like, because her and Penelope were so close, like when she just comes and walks in the room, in the beginning of joining, when she tells her to no, it's episode 6, it's Romancing Mr. Bridgerton.
Mm-hmm.
When she tells her or whatever to let Cressida take the blame. Let Cressida be Lady Whistledown. And she just walks in. I thought that was the norm. But that actually occurred later than when she came to visit her and she got announced by Varley. And I think that's indicative of the fact that Eloise isn't in her house very much. And I think that
I think Pen always goes there.
And I think Pen has taught, because Pen knows the house. She knows how to sneak around and be invisible. I think Pen has taught Eloise how to sneak in. And that's how she got in the second time around. Because all these houses have a way for you to, there's secret entrances and servants' entrances and quarters, whatever, to where the family doesn't know you're there. And Eloise wouldn't want to deal with everyone else. I think Eloise has an idea of how Penelope is treated, because
look at Hyacinth's book. They're able to sneak in and out of Gareth's mansion, family estate or whatever, in and out multiple times without. The main head servant guy, I can't remember his name, but he's like aware that someone's there, but he's not. And a lot of these, like in those times, a lot of people thought that the mansions and that were haunted, or estates that they were. And obviously because Gareth's mother died there, maybe he's like, oh, it's my old lady coming back to haunt me.
But I think that what we see in the beginning of Forces of Nature is the fact that Eloise is announced. Eloise is not comfortable coming to Penelope's house and just walking in like we would have thought them being best friends. Penelope spent most of her time at Bridgerton House. And this is how we know why Colin and Penelope are so close. Because if Eloise was going to Penelope's house all the time, Colin would not know her.
No.
Because he couldn't come. A young man could not go to a lady's house. Now, she could go to her friend's house, and her friend has a brother.
Yeah.
But Colin couldn't go with his sister to visit Penelope.
It's the age-old, like, falling in love with your
And here's what I think. This is why
sibling.
I want a backstory so bad, because Colin figured out how to get into the back garden without anyone knowing he was there. He got in there twice with the only person who knew was Ray.
Are you forgetting his name? Crafty Colin. If there is a will, there is a way. Maybe he's got a touch of Kiwi New Zealander in him, because we call it Kiwi ingenuity.
But somebody on the socials pointed out that when Benedict tells Sir John that he needs to do something a little crazy, a little brazen, and he says throw rocks at her window, and Colin's like, No.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
You see how comfortable he is sneaking to the back garden of Penelope's house. And we know her window faces the back garden. It does not face the front, because she goes and sits in the drawing room to look out the front to Bridgerton House.
I think it was more the fact of the choice of wordings that he was opposed to. Please do not throw. You're meant to throw pebbles, not rocks.
No, I have a thought process that Eloise and Colin, as children, both snuck over to play with Penelope, like when Penelope wasn't allowed over.
No one wants to deal with Portia, okay? No one, not even a kid.
No one. And nobody wants to play with Prudence and Philippa. I mean, come on. Can you see Eloise and Colin wanting to play with them? No.
And we will talk about that a little bit more in like 10 notes time. But like this episode is probably the one that I had always assumed that the kind of intelligence order went Penelope, very solidly Prudence, and then Philippa. This episode, Philippa's a little bit dense herself.
Philippa's always dense. Do you mean Prudence?
Sorry, Prudence. Let's talk about another dense gal though, Cressida, as we'll get through these notes and then I'll get to talk about that part. Cressida very much underestimates Penelope, and that was another thing that harkened back to our emotional dumping episode where we talked about her size being the main contributing factor as to why, because there is literally no other justifiable reason. Penelope is a wonderful,
well, aside from her family, her want of connections.
Yeah.
Cressida comes from a well-respected, or they believe they're well-respected.
Yes.
Family, and Penelope's family. Penelope is well respected by the Bridgertons, by Lady Danbury, even though we've never seen her talk to her.
Yeah.
But the ton is because Penelope's so quiet it and she follows the rules of etiquette.
Mhm.
So, like, she
Well,
didn't snap back at the
I
lords at
think
Stowell House.
I think that because the Queen has now accepted Lady Whistledown, when we get to episode 8, I think that that is going to have a carry-on effect for the whole Featherington family. Now that Lady Whistledown is essentially the head of the family, I think that's going to have a big
Mm-hmm.
carry-on effect for the rest of the family, even though they're not technically
Yeah,
Featheringtons
and
anymore.
Cressida lowered the stock value of the Cowpers
Yes,
by
very much
pretending to
so.
be Whistledown.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And yeah, the Queen's influence spreads far. If you are dirt to the Queen, you are worse than dirt to the rest of the ton. I want to talk about Eloise's version of romance. So, Cressida asks Eloise for her help to secure Lord Debling. And I love that Eloise and Penelope are so similar that she's like, well, I have a book about it.
Right.
I have no
I
knowledge
love that they
myself.
show you. I love that they show, and they need to, because in season 2, Colin is trying to separate the two of them
Yeah.
because he's developing, he's wanting to act on his feelings with
Yes.
Penelope. So he needs to separate them. It cannot be that this is his sister's friend and he needs to say they're different, but they really aren't. And I think
No.
that's what he struggles with. I think that's a big struggle, especially after the wedding, is he's finding that his wife has the same notions as his sister. And he's like, did I just marry my sister? What the ever loving, right?
Well, I mean, they say
I
that
think
you
that's
marry one of
part
your
of it.
parents.
Well, and I think I think it was very naive of him to think that these two girls are friends and they are completely opposite.
I think they are I wouldn't even say extrovert and introvert version of each other. I think they're the extroverted.
Neurotypical and neurospicy versions of each other.
Yeah, because Eloise isn't extroverted, but she is exceedingly extroverted compared to Penelope. But that is only because she has been afforded a lot more kindness in her life where people have accepted her willingly, whereas I think we would see Penelope with a lot more friends around if her family was in good standing. I think people would enjoy, like, I think
and I think she was given the space even when
Hallowell would enjoy, like, she's also very softly spoken, but Penelope's not given. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, I think Eloise was given space in her home to be who she was, like to explain the difference of why Penelope and Eloise are the same but different.
Because I really need to get going, because my auntie is here. She just flown in from Australia. And for any Australians out there, she has brought me twisties, she has brought me light and tangy chips, and she has brought me caramello koalas, because I am still a 6-year-old girl at heart. It's basically like caramello koalas are, I think, Freddo frog, if you have a Freddo frog over there.
Harry Potter?
No, Freddo frog.
I have that stuff.
Okay, you're missing.
We have the frog, the chocolate frog from Harry Potter. You can find that some places.
I have chocolate frogs in here as well, but no. Okay, let's talk magic.
Okay.
If we're talking about chocolate frogs, let's talk magic, because the Featherington girls are chatting away with Farley and Mrs. Featherington about taking their special potions for their special little boys. Chamber pot.
And I'm trying to
eat your snacks.
No, I'm trying to figure out, like, I read Outlander and stuff like that, so I know there are a lot of natural concoctions from things in the wild that women use for terminating.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there's concoctions to
we still have that worked out for Marina,
to try and get a boy, try and get a girl, kind of thing. But I don't understand how something could smell of rotten eggs and taste kind of that. I cannot figure out.
Bertie Bott's every flavor bean, rotten eggs edition.
True. Again, Harry Potter's made it into Bridgerton.
I hate the rotten eggs. Well, actually, the worst one in the world is definitely centipede. I vomit every time I smell the smell. I bought a big bag of buttery popcorn. We have one store that you can go and pick just whatever flavor, and I bought buttery popcorn. I didn't know that my girlfriend had snuck in one that was not buttery popcorn. It was centipede, and I'm sitting there watching Harry Potter, eating away at my bag of buttery popcorn, jelly bellies, every flavor Betty Bop bean, and I come across a centipede and I chewed. It was all in the teeth, it was everywhere. And my windows only open up a couple of inches. And here I am vomiting out my window that I can barely fit my mouth through the gap. Oh, and
Back when I was a foster
she just
parent, we
gets a
actually
slurry
got
of
those.
abuse.
And we played the game where you took out it was you had the box of the Bertie
Yeah,
Bott's
yeah.
and
Bean boozled.
you took out the two colors that were the same.
Bean boozled. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody and the two people had to and then I mean I just got so many pictures and it was a laugh riot. Did I play? No, because I'm very sensitive to things and no, I did
Yeah.
not want to get the
Well, did you not hear the vomiting story? It was horrendous.
The kids played it and that was fine.
Yes. All right. We need to chug along because I have taken us on too many. I am not medicated. I'm an entirely unmedicated
So I don't see,
human being.
yeah. So I don't understand. Like I think that just shows the desperation of Portia because she's very practical and pragmatic, and she's trying witchery. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's so desperate for there to be an heir. This scene shows you how afraid of Dundas she really is. Because she's trying to get her daughters to drink some
because we've had
pagan
2 episodes now without Dundas. You can almost forget about him slightly, but
well, and that's the point. You're supposed to forget about him,
but
everything she does
is not. Yeah.
No. Well, because even like she is not happy about Penelope and Colin, and she fakes it. She fakes it. You can tell she's faking the smiles and stuff for a while because she's like
until she realizes it's real, and then she kind of comes around. But initially, when she starts realizing, hey, this is a real thing,
like everybody's like when he comes and he brings the ring and he's worried about her and everybody's like, oh, Portia's face, she's seeing him love her, and I'm like, that face is like, I'm gonna be happy, I'm gonna show you I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm not happy.
Let me show you how happy I am. Look, I'm smiling. It totally meets the eyes.
Smiling. And she moves her head in like, look at, see, it's a smile, Penelope, it's a smile, I'm happy.
Yeah, we see that with another mother this episode, actually, trying to force a feeling that isn't quite there. So let's talk about it. We enter into the balloon event and we immediately get to meet one of our, not that we know it at this point, but we get to meet one of our love interests for the season, even though he only lasted like less time than the Duke in season 1.
Well, and I remember we kind of said a thing where it seemed weird that Danbury and Violet both were like the first sparks of affection. Yes. And we're like, what? Well, I'm calling it because I rewatched episode 3 today, as we do, to prepare.
Yes.
And I saw the scene again with the Queen and Danbury looking at the miniatures and choosing who Fran's love interest should be, who her match. And we have seen it in the boards that Debling made a better match for Penelope than Colin. We have seen Debling should have been with Cressida. We have seen Debling and Eloise would have made a great match. I posit that Danbury, who we already know is very observant because she suspects Penelope this whole time of being Lady Whistledown, doesn't say anything, but she suspects it. We know that she's super into the Bridgertons and their outcomes. She has become super interested in Fran.
Well, she tells Violet, she is Granny D.
Yeah, Granny D. She kind of chastises Violet like, yeah, you're taking her out of her comfort zone and it's not working. Let's put her in her comfort zone. And I think Danbury's kind of figured out what Fran wants are. And here's where we see Danbury putting in her own influence from her past, okay? So I think Danbury's kind of figured out Fran's MO. So she says, what about Lord Debling? Danbury brings up Debling. The Queen is like, no, he's boring as all get out. But everything the Queen says about him...
boring as all get up.
Everything she says about Debling, a lot of people would say about Fran. With music.
Yeah.
I think Danbury figured they're very similar in their special interests. They're very into their special interests. They isolate themselves. They don't need a lot of personal connection.
Neither of them fit in with their families.
Neither of them fit in with their families. Debling is only seeking a wife to get an heir because his family is at his throat. He does not necessarily want to get married. Fran doesn't want to get married. Danbury sees him, but she's also how we've talked about how all of the ladies, that trifecta of meddlers, as we
Yes.
say, all are trying to meddle in a way that gets the young
You
person
need to
their version.
you need to remake the song. They are the meddling queens.
Right. As they're using their experience. Well, Danbury's experience was that she was married to somebody that she didn't love, who wasn't all that hot, that great for her, and he died off, and then she got to do
She got her
whatever she
second
wanted.
act. She got her second act in love, even if it was behind the
So,
shadows.
but she got whatever she wanted with the money and everything
Yeah.
else, and she pretty much she gets to be as isolated as she wants and as
But
quiet as she wants or as
I
social
think
as she wants.
I think the reason that she is truly happy is because she got to make her decision. She got to experience what it was like to be in love. She
Mm-hmm.
got to deny what would have been a very advantageous match for her in the Queen's brother, Rudolphus.
I'm
Rudolphus?
saying that I think Danbury is an ally.
Yeah.
And here's why I'm saying this. She introduced Benedict to Granville in season
Yeah.
one. And I
I think
think
she'd
she
be
has
all
an
for it.
idea. I think she has an idea about Granville.
Yeah.
And I think she's figured out Fran. And I think she was trying to help Fran. What is the best way to be able to connect to
Yeah.
somebody that you love that is not welcome in the ton, except have a husband who's not present?
Yeah.
He's going to the Arctic,
Actually,
and Danbury's
okay,
not dumb. He's
I
going to
rate
die.
this. I rate this. Okay, I see it.
So I think her first sparks of affection comment is sarcasm. I think she's playing into Violet because they're friends, but I think it comes off sarcastic because she had a different idea for Fran, and I think she knows this is not what Fran wants.
Okay. Okay, I can see that. All right, we've
You
jumped.
go, Danbury. You ally you.
You go, Glen Coco. I will never not make the pop references.
Oh, same.
Will 90% of them be Harry Potter? Yeah. Okay.
Harry Potter. Let's see. We've done Harry Potter, Friends, How I Met Your Mother, Mean Girls,
I love that you've got
Outlander.
I love that you've got this juxtaposition between the
and
Queen.
Gables.
I love how you have this now you're throwing me off, Patty. You've got this juxtaposition between the Queen, who's talking to Lord Somodati, and she says, "I did think it'd be bigger." And I'm like, "I bet you did, girl. I bet you did." And then it cuts immediately to the Featheringtons. Prudence. It is enormous. And Dinky, I love Dinky. Indeed. And ready to fly at a moment's notice now that you are feeling better. I clearly, just like one man's trash is another man's treasure, what is small to one is enormous to another. So never give up hope.
Well, and I'm going to say something very crude, but the fact that he said, and it's ready to rise at a moment's notice, I'm going to say back in my day, there was a saying that was, it's not the length, it's not the size, it's how many times you can make it rise.
Really? I've heard the motion of the ocean, but not that one.
Yeah, it's not the length, it's not the size, it's how many times you can make it rise. And the very first time Dankworth said this, it'll rise at a moment's notice, I'm like, wow.
That's hilarious. That's really funny.
And what's funny to me is, again, they've only been married less than a year. They've been physically intimate for a month at this point, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And they're already understanding each other's like the sexual innuendo language.
I think they've only been married for a few months.
Philippa and Finch are still like, they just seem to be balloon enthusiasts. Like, they don't even get the joke.
Well, Philippa says, "What are they talking about?" And Finchy says, "Apparently they are great balloon enthusiasts." I love just the intonation of the way that Finchy says things.
His delivery is so good.
We're going to manifest this out into the world. If we ever have guests hosts,
I want Lauren McDonald first.
Lauren McDonald is probably number one. Like, we stan and Albion Finch. We have since day one.
Mr. Finch.
Yeah. So
with the climate in the United States, I would love to have.
Yes.
I would love to have Finch so bad.
Yes.
That would become a very political episode.
Oh no! Excuse me. Daddy's got to get you dressed because we're going to go see Auntie Robin, and she's going to have special treats for us today. But we can't do that if you're not ready. Can you go get ready? Can you? Okay. But Mummy's going to hit pause for a second. Not stop. Don't. how did I know that watering the plants would be the winning statement?
Yeah.
Okay. So one other thing that I wanted to mention about the Featheringtons before we move on is both the Featheringtons and the Bridgertons in this episode, their outfits are very opposing each other. There is not a lot of cohesion between the outfits. So for Prudence today, she's wearing this purple toned kind of, it almost looks like a quilt, to be honest, with then chiffon, big chiffon at the top. It almost looks like something that we would more see Cressida in, almost like it's.
Well, and I don't think this whole season, I don't think the Featheringtons really do match each other until
And
Penelope's wedding.
well, and that's the thing, because Penelope's wedding is when they start coming together. So what I'm proposing here is that their outfits are very dysregulated to show the dysregulation between the family at the moment and how disjointed they are until Penelope gets married. They now have a head. Well, they don't know it yet, but they're about to have a new head of the Featherington family. And Penelope definitely puts in the hard yards to kind of pull her family back together and have some cohesion between them.
Well, but in the epilogue scene, the sisters' outfits are very Featherington, while her and Portia Featherington,
Mhm.
while her and her mother are very traditional Featherington colors.
Yeah.
So I think some of the costume choices are to show that the girls are now separated. Because like in
Well,
the past
in
seasons,
the last
we saw Portia matching them because her
yes,
attention was on
on
them.
them. Yeah.
She was focused on them, and now she's not. She wanted to be done. She was retired from
Yeah.
matchmaking, retired from motherhood. Penelope can take care of herself.
Mm.
And she now, what I mean, it's important to note here that she never really tries to match Penelope ever.
Yes.
I
Never,
mean, she
never, not
shows up.
once.
She
Actually,
shows up.
there is the dress that I posted a few months ago, but probably a month ago now. That was the Mercury dress that I posted about Penelope's,
The
because
butterfly ball.
no, the episode where
Oh, the wedding breakfast where they're
the
looking
where
sad
they're
Penelope.
where they're setting up the wedding breakfast, and the
Mm-hmm.
mamas realize that there is an issue
A
between
problem.
but in a maybe an episode or two later, Portia is wearing not a matching, but it's the same kind of material where it's that color shifting kind of splotches of, but it's in more
Yeah.
goldy tones than that kind of purple
Yeah.
blue
Because I
that.
thought she kind of was trying at the wedding,
Yes.
matching
Yeah.
Penelope some, but still keeping the green. And
Yes.
then at the butterfly ball, she was in supporting colors.
Well,
So
in this episode, so we got Prudence wearing the purple tone quilt with chiffon, and it's very quite structured. And then we have
mhm.
Prudence, Philippa, who's wearing a
Philippa.
very chiffony, very peachy, very like flowy, loose. Like it definitely. I don't.
Hmm.
I'm not a seamstress. I'm not good with shapes, but it's one that like completely drops down from her chest downwards, kind of thing. Like there's no
Yeah.
structure at all. And I think that's kind of to try allude to the fact that, that
She's pregnant.
yeah, and she's starting to wear very unstructured outfits. Because do you start to wear a corset at all while you're pregnant?
You wear a corset until you can't, and then you cannot go out in public. You're
Ah,
in what is called your confinement. That's why they
confinement.
called it
Okay.
confinement,
Okay.
because you were stuck at home.
Yeah.
It was improper
To be seen without a
to
corset.
view a woman without a womanly shape.
Yeah.
And anything having to do with pregnancy from sex on and the pregnancy was considered dirty,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
she's wearing a very soft, peachy, flowy, like, and then we've got Hen who's wearing her Wedgwood blue. And then we've got Portia who's wearing a very busy flower pattern dress on the bottom, which is very dark in tone and ironically what I would describe as melancholy colors. Miss
yeah.
Portia Featherington. But then she's got the turquoise coat on the top. I don't know if it's a coat or if it's part of the dress because it's kind of like a
Oh, they
structured.
all like wore those Cody things. Like it was a
Yeah,
coat.
bolero kind of. I don't know what you'd call it, but yeah, I don't know if it's part of the dress
And
or
I think
separate.
her shape, I think the shape of her outfit it matches Penelope's figure shape. And I think that it's kind of a way to indicate this is why Portia treated Penelope this way. And it helps us
Yeah.
see that she probably went through something very similar in her upbringing when it was her time to come out into society,
Yeah.
because she would have had a more shapely body shape than the women we are seeing being the diamond and
Yeah.
everything. So,
Next, we get to see Gregory, Hyacinth, Benedict, and Colin arrive together. And for anyone who's wondering why we kind of get it in chunks like that, I'm pretty sure that a carriage can only hold 4 people comfortably. And so that is why they always take 2 carriages. So I'm assuming in one carriage, we had Gregory, Hyacinth, Benedict, and Colin, followed by the second carriage because we see kind of like a second later the arrival of Fran, Violet, and Eloise, because I assume that Violet's keeping her daughters close. Like, I'm going to take this carriage ride time to coach them through friendships and not choosing awful husbands.
And in this case, I mean, she's been shopping with them and everything else, but in this case, in this scene, it's like they're all one.
Yes.
Like Eloise is kind of coming back to the fold. Like her and her mother's relationship is repairing. I think you're really seeing it here from the end of season 2, where her mother tried to fix her up with that jerk, and confusing her rebellion for that rebellion. Like hers isn't rebellion. Hers is her actual personality. Like, she believes women can be more than they're allowed to be. It's not a rebellion. It's progress. She's more political. She's more serious about it. And she tried to fix her up with somebody who was unserious. And it just showed Eloise that her mother really didn't see her. And I think they're really starting to repair that. And
I think
because her mother has stepped back and is like, look, you do your thing. It's cool. And Eloise respects that about her mother, that her mother is giving her that space.
I think Eloise was desperately searching that there surely has to be something more for women out there than just marriage or spinsterhood. Like, what else was out there for me? But in this episode, what I found interesting is that the entire Bridgerton family are all wearing their Wedgwood blue, with the exception of one. And I found her clothing choices quite interesting. Violet, in this episode, is wearing a very rougey blush pink dress. It's a very quartzy, rosy dress, which we very, very seldom see Violet in anything other than Wedgwood blue, cream, silver, like light Bridgerton family colors. And I wonder whether this was a foreshadowing moment to tell us we are about to meet her new love interest, because obviously pink represents romance, and I think that she's now wearing pink, just like.
And this is a May Day festival with so May Day is for the young women. Yeah, it's about fertility and stuff. Not so much. I mean, we know she's fertile, but hopefully that's in the past, because if there was more kids now, sheesh. As Claudia Jessie says, Mom, Dad, quit producing babies. I don't think Violet's wanting babies, but I think that the color choice here for a very spring,
it's still in bloom though.
Yes, I think that's what it's indicating, is that she's ready to meet someone who is ready to water her garden.
Because it is in the next scene that we meet Lord Anderson. So I do think that the dress was very much Violet is about to have some romance coming her way, because I cannot think of another reason why they would change her so starkly from blue, silver, light tones, I mean the blue, straight into, actually it's almost the exact same color of the top that you're wearing today, but slightly more pink.
Well, this is burgundy.
Yeah,
it may not look burgundy, but it is.
It looks, well, it's that tone of pink but lighter, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, so
What's next, because my surprise is coming.
Okay, well, I was just quite interested that both the Featherington and the Bridgertons in this episode had outfits that kind of allude to what is happening in the storyline. Next we have Cressida and Eloise, which I think is the part. So Cressida and Eloise are walking.
Okay, this is where my surprise is.
Talking about the Great Orc. And I think this is the moment that Eloise notices the divide between their friendship, where Penelope and Eloise would always discuss books. There would have been a deeply stimulating conversation, but with Cressida, she clearly just skimmed the surface of the book, because she
called it silly,
because she makes quips like, oh, like about the Great Orc flying, and Eloise is like, did you even read this book? The Great Orc does not fly, and don't call it a silly little animal. Like, it's.
But she's like, I don't think he wants his life's work being called silly, but really, I think Eloise was hurt in that moment. Like, I gave you a book, I wanted to discuss it. and this is
Yes.
all I'm getting from you.
Yeah, and books are something that is sacred to her, and that was what I mean. You know how in episode 2, how we had Colin being jealous over Penelope and Lord Remington bonding over gossip. This was very much Eloise's "I can't replace Penelope" moment because I tried to
Yeah.
bond over books. I tried to bond over knowledge and not gossip,
Hmm.
knowledge, and you clearly have no interest. You are as
Right.
daft as a broom. Oh.
Yeah, and it's her own fault. She chose not to read the book. She chose not to do the assignment.
Hmm.
And honestly, as I was doing, like, it's not so much a love language, they're expressions, love expressions, and one
Hmm.
of the love expressions is sharing knowledge and
Yes.
allowing somebody to fully, like, we express our love for each other by letting each other be as neurospicy and as intelligent and analytical as we want to be, and we
Hmm.
celebrate it. And so us sharing our notes and us sharing, that is what developed this friendship, because we were making space for that, and we have both experienced situations where, as women, as whatever we are, it's been devalued and diminished at some point.
Hmm.
So it's very similar. Like,
It's too
she
much.
I think at the beginning of this episode, Penelope tried to draw her back in, like, hey, I've got some new books. Do you want to talk? And she's like, no, I gotta go. It was too much for her. She was not going to see a friend, because we know why she left that room.
Mm.
She didn't have plans to go see a friend. That was just to get her out of there and to dig a little bit. But Penelope wanted it. She does. So she brings up books with Cressida in the hopes that Cressida will read it. She gets hopeful because Cressida wants to read it. And then she finds out Cressida doesn't even bother. And to
I
me, I
think
feel
she
like that's a
skimmed.
betrayal almost.
I
Yeah, I
think she
think that's
skimmed.
and truthfully, Eloise probably marked pages and marked, like, read this, read this, read this. This is important. And that's all she read. And she didn't bother with anything else.
Mm.
And Eloise is figuring that out. Like, she's definitely not be. And that's what makes that whole interaction with them worse. Like, she's collining for Cressida.
Yeah.
She's doing the
Well,
marriage whisperer thing for Cressida.
and it's not even that Cressida is unintelligent. That's not the issue per se. It
No.
is that because I think people obviously can have deep connections without being on the same IQ level, but you've got to have some fundamental core values or core beliefs or core
Cressida has no
something.
core anything.
She
She
doesn't
was
know her
raised that
core.
you mirror and become
Yes.
whatever it is that
Yeah.
person in front of you is, so that you can get a
That
husband.
you can't mirror what you
She's
don't know. You can't mirror
right.
intelligence.
She's mirrored Cressida, or she's mirrored Eloise. She's mirrored Lord Debling.
She's mirrored her mother.
She's mirrored everybody. She doesn't know how to. She doesn't know who she is.
Mm.
And honestly, I hope that her going to her aunt, even though Aunt Josephine to be
Mm.
icky, I hope that she
Hey,
learns who she
Aunt
is.
Josephine and Anne with an E seemed icky to start with as well, and then she ended up
True.
being probably one of my favorite characters.
Oh yeah, sorry, Aunt Joanna. Aunt Josephine is for
Yeah,
me.
that's I was like,
Anna Green
I know
Gables.
that
Yeah,
they're both
Aunt
named the
Joanna.
same. Joanna, yeah.
No. But so here's my surprise. I was looking up the sculpture that is at the beginning of Hyde Park,
Yeah.
and I could not find it.
Mm-hmm.
AI did not help me. They said it was Persephone. I went down a rabbit hole. It's not Persephone, although that kind of fits a little bit. So needless to say, but while I was looking for that, I found something else. And it's not heavily, like, it's in the shot, but it's not, they never pan on it. So it's just there. But there is a huge swan that is woven from willow bark, willow. And it is a basket. It's like a shaped like a balloon basket, and it's full of flowers. And it's right behind Debling. So like when Penelope walks up, you can see it. Like when you pan in, you can see it, because I had to see where it was. And then I had to watch everybody where they walk and stuff, so I can figure out what it's doing and what its importance is, because they commissioned it specifically. It had to be a basket, it had to be a swan, and it had to be made of willow, which we already said under the willow tree that the willow was, if it's representing being in despair over love, blah 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 blah, it's Colin stayed under the willow. So now this swan, which we always said that Colin was the swan represents Colin.
Yeah.
Like, he's the ugly duckling. And I was rereading Romancing Mr. Bridgerton this morning for a few minutes, looking at some highlights I had in there. And Penelope specifically says, like, I thought you of all people would look past the ugly duckling, but there's so many, because that was in the carriage scene, and there's so many things that are swapped because this is gender swap season,
Yes.
that I honestly believe that he's the ugly duckling and Penn has always seen past the ugly duckling and he feels like an ugly duckling. But if you look at where this swan is, it's behind Debling. You don't ever see the whole swan, but it's facing where Colin's standing. So as Penelope walks up and she sees Debling, the swan's right there. And when she turns away, like, oh crap, Cressida's there. She turns away. She would be walking back in the direction where Colin is. And this whole situation that's going on, the swan, it's not pointing at them. It's not like it's watching over their scene or anything. It's facing where Colin is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's deep purple flowers that are in it. I didn't get a chance to see what flowers, but the reason I found it is
I'm going to look at the flowers.
I found a news article about it where they reached out to the people that made it. They had no idea it was going to be in Bridgerton. They just know that a production company commissioned it, and it specifically had to be a swan, and it specifically had to be willow. And
wow.
They thought, like the news article thought it was at the wedding, but they only found out where it went because they saw a picture of the Bridgerton cast with the swan in a behind the scenes picture, and it's all their outfits from the balloon scene.
Isn't
so I'm
it
like,
interesting?
That's not the wedding.
Even though without reading that article, we would never ever know that it was made of willow. But this is why I go so deep into my Delulu of everything is there for a reason. Everything is specifically chosen, all the colors, all the outfits, all the jewelry, all the props, everything is chosen for a reason because they do things like this. And it feeds the Delulu in me.
This swan is never not like that sculpture where they swipe in over the sculpture to the girl, which is why I really believe there was something about that sculpture that represents their friendship, one or the other of them, or even coming back after we had just had the Debling approaching Penn, which I also found today in that, he calls her the deer on the wall, like that it's dead. Right? She went away from the herd and she got shot. Like that's that whole story. Like you don't go away from the ton, they just shoot you, right? But he makes a quip about it can come to the party. But behind him,
you can come to the party, but you're dead inside. As in, if you go away from the herd, you can marry me. But if you do that, you will be dead inside because you will not have anything that you truly desired in life.
Well, and the whole thing is he's looking at a wall of deer when Cressida walks up to him and they have that predator-prey conversation, which I think is important. He comes up to Penelope and he says he's feeling like prey. But then she starts talking and she's very self-deprecating and she says she's an abject failure and social contagion. And he makes the very smallest eyebrow raise, like, And then from that moment on, when they're talking, she's got the deer behind her and he points it out. She's prey. And behind him, I can't really tell. It's dark. It's a bird, though. It's a predatory bird. It could be an owl. It could be an owl. It could be a hawk. It's not a eagle, but it is in flight. Like it is.
I'll have to go and look at it actually. I
so
very much
he's
rate
the predator.
Sam.
She's prey.
Yeah. Very much. I very much rate Sam. I think is a brilliant actor as well.
Yes. And I love that he came up with the backstory. I don't think his backstory fits how they edited and how they directed him necessarily, because I do think they directed him kind of predatory.
I think we'll cover the backstory maybe if we do an episode covering Lord Debling specifically. I think we'll talk about it there.
We're doing an episode covering Lord Debling. But I saw that today and I was like, we've seen all these deer, and that was there. That's a predatory bird in flight hunting behind him, which I think is important. But then like the swan is not even overlooking the conversation with the three ladies in Debling, but pointing back to Colin. So I think it's like, girlfriend, he's changed. He's not the ugly duckling anymore. Yeah. He's your swan.
And I think this segues perfectly because we now need to discuss Lord Debling anyway. And I know that we have already discussed the Penelope, Eloise, Cressida, Debling awkward situation, but we actually only discussed it from when Penelope joined specifically. We didn't talk about the lead up to that. And kind
Right.
of this conversation between Debling. So Debling is approached by Cressida and Eloise. I believe they approach him, not the other way around.
They're actually walking toward each other. Like
Yeah.
he's walking, they're walking, and I almost feel like he's walking towards them.
But he doesn't really
Um,
like, he doesn't like, oh, there's no like, oh, I found you or good to see. Like, it's just kind
well,
of like
no,
a,
it's the same society, like, Miss Cowper, Miss Bridgerton,
yes.
Lord Debling kind of thing. And then
Mhm.
when he sees, but the faux pause when he sees Penelope and she's what, 30 feet away, 40
Yeah.
feet away, whatever,
Trying to
he's like,
avoid.
Miss Featherington. Like he actually has to
Yell.
project
Yeah.
to get her attention, and that is a no. And
Yeah.
you don't bring somebody into a
Yeah.
conversation, although
Yeah.
he can because he's the highest ranked person
Well,
there.
and I
uh,
think he's making it very clear that he's courting Penelope, and by like announcing, calling
I
out to her
think
as like
he wants
announcing the courtship.
I think he wants the two of them. This is modern. If this was modern day, he'd be wanting them to wrestle in
Um,
Jello over him.
he's giving them the giant ear, what do you call them in America? You're not supposed to put them in your ears. Cotton buds.
Q-tips.
Q-tips, that's right.
Like he wants to see them compete over him. He
Yeah.
wants to see two girls
But
fighting over him, and
but
it's
before Penelope joins, I think this conversation and the ease in which they have the conversation is what kind of made a few fans, let's talk
mhm.
about the Delulu fans, think that
Oh,
he would
and I
make
want
a
to point
good
out
think that he would make a good match for Eloise, because they do have an easier conversation. And I think that is purely for the fact that Debling is an intellectual, as is Eloise, and that is why she has a bit more ease because she's like, oh my God, finally someone's got to have a conversation with me that's not about dresses or who's the cutest boy or what your wedding's gonna look like. She's having a conversation about a book that she's read. Well, not that
right.
they,
And
yeah.
and I think that as we talked about clothes with the Featheringtons and everything, Cressida's outfit here is Cressida pink, but it also has Penelope yellow in it. And I think
Yeah,
that is because
trying to
Eloise
mirror.
is really trying to fashion
Yeah,
Cressida into being the Penelope replacement. But
yeah,
I also think it feeds into, we see Cressida's vulnerability here. We see that she really is
trying.
insecure
Yeah.
herself, and she's more like Penelope in that she doesn't have support of her family. She doesn't know what she's doing if she doesn't have somebody to compete with, because look, she had no one to compete with in this conversation. It was
Hmm.
just her and Debling having a conversation, and Cressida or Eloise was there to
Coming in
help
with the
her.
assist.
Eloise
Yeah,
Eloise did give her the assist, but she was floundering. When it's
yeah.
just her and a man
But
talking to each other,
did you
she
see?
is Penelope. But as soon as Penelope walks up,
Well, even before
she's
then, when Eloise asks, is there a reason that you're wanting to escape, and your family, and the second that Cressida realizes that he's not close with her family, she's like, oh, finally saying we can bond over.
something.
Yes, 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 I'll jump on it. And she looks
But
actively excited for him to not be close with his family because that's something
mm-hmm.
that she, I think, just cannot fathom.
Well, and the thing, she had to find common ground with somebody instead of crushing a competitor in front of the potential person. Because remember, she walks up and she pours her drink on Penelope in front of Colin.
Yeah,
She stomps on her dress in front of Debling in the first dance. That is Cressida's MO. She
yeah,
has to appear more powerful over the competition in
yeah,
front of the men. And that is why she doesn't have a husband,
yeah.
because men
Don't
want
want someone
a,
powerful.
they no.
They want a submissive. What is the
And they
term
want
that they
real
use?
power, not bully power. I mean,
What is
even
that
the jerks,
term?
they don't want bully power.
What is that term that they use? Amiable. They want someone
Mm-hmm.
amiable. That is the
They want
goal.
somebody agreeable and amiable, and who is going to be
It's my favorite.
um
It's my
who's
favorite synonym that Mr. Collins uses in Pride and Prejudice, and I'm like, amiable. Really? That's the word you're going to choose to describe her?
mm-hmm, like she is not amiable, dude.
No, no.
That's like saying demure.
Yeah.
No woman.
No. Well, I mean,
No.
apparently one.
Well, apparently 72 million of them.
Yes. So, I never aim to be demure. like I'm way too
I want a
chaotic for that.
t-shirt made. I want a t-shirt made that says F.
I'll make one for you. All
I
right.
am not demure.
So Penelope actually comes up and joins the trio. Well, not willingly, but I did notice that she does not acknowledge Cressida or Eloise at all. Like Lord
No,
Devling,
because she doesn't know what to do. She
no,
doesn't know what to do.
there's no
This is
social
not
protocol to follow.
socially, yes, this is not socially acceptable
But
at
surely
all.
he's picked up on this.
There's no playbook. No
Like,
playbook. She has no idea.
surely Devling is like cottoning on to the fact that like there is something going on between them because like
Yes.
they don't
He's
acknowledge each
got
other.
them. He's got them right where he is an observer. He is a scientific man. He is somebody who is very intellectual. I
Yeah.
think he has clocked their competition and he's playing with it and
Well,
he's breaking the rules to do so. Like
and
he's putting them in awkward situations so that he can watch them squirm.
And because he says, you know, in the episode after the Eros and Psyche moment, episode 4, he says, I thought you were at odds with Mr. Bridgerton. And that's who you were searching for, you know, always looking out. I thought you were fighting. And it's like, so clearly you're paying attention to like, because obviously I think he thinks that it's probably like she's fallen out with the Bridgerton family as a whole, and that just includes Colin.
Right.
Because obviously he can see that there's a divide between Eloise and Penelope here, and I'm sure that it's well enough known in the ton that you don't ever get Eloise without Penelope prior to this. I'm sure he probably knows that they were best friends.
Yeah.
Surely, as a man, as a man,
well,
who's
not even
courting,
as a man,
he would no,
as
no.
a
I mean,
member.
he'd be doing recon, asking his maids or you know whoever, hey, what is the situation with this person? Like he doesn't seem like he socializes enough to find out the information on his own by asking other people. He would have to ask the staff, hey, you know, what is the situation with Penelope Featherington? And he
Well,
would
just like and we're supposed to take that this is context. I'm sorry, I didn't
no,
hear
no,
half of
you
what
know,
you said because my son dialed in, but I text.
yeah.
But Colin asking about Deb. Everybody, and even in season 1, who's that? Oh, that is Mr. Featherington's cousin's daughter or whatever. Like everybody asks all the time. So in context, we are supposed to know that when we get that information, everybody who needs to know that information has already done the asking. Debling has done the research.
Yeah.
He knows these girls have an issue with each other. And I still am going with he is friendly with the Lord Squad. The Lord Squad is definitely grown. I now include
Balding, Dibbling,
the guy that first commented on Penn's dress at Danbury's, said his name
Garrett.
earlier. Lord Garrett. Lord Garrett's part of the Lord Squad now. Because I think he's involved in Fife trying to steal Colin's friend.
Okay, so we're actually up to that. This is the scene that we directly follow into from the that conversation.
And I've noticed this for a while. I just have been trying to figure out why it matters because we have Fife all over the place at Danbury's, and then he's not really. We have mostly Wilding and Stanton hanging out with Colin, but I noticed at Stowell House, Penelope walks up to Wilding and Stanton, and, you know, Colin's been watching her. I don't understand how Colin didn't know what the conversation was about or that Penelope walked away from it upset. But he never hangs out with them, and he hangs out with them at every ball, right? He is just following Penelope around. So I think, like, Fife got the word that Colin's got a new friend, because who did Colin hang out with? He hung out with Will and Alice, the Mondricks. So we see Will walk away from a couple of lords and tell his wife he has just been invited on a hunt, and he's all excited. He's being accepted into the ton. But the two people who invited him are Fife and Garrett. And Fife's got a grin on his face like, dude, like I honestly think that Fife hates the Bridgertons, even though he talks to them and whatever. I think Fife hates the Bridgertons.
I don't think he hates them. I think he likes to mess with them. There's a difference.
Yes. Well, and according to Nicola Coughlan, Fife hates Penelope for whatever reason, but I think he hates them in some way, shape, or form. Dislikes them, whatever.
Because she stands for everything that he despises in a woman. Not that he knows the full extent of it, but he likes to pay hard and fast with the morals of women.
Yeah, and I think that he has clocked her feelings for Colin forever, and that made her off limits. And yeah, I don't know. There's something there, and I think that's part of what we're gonna find out in season 4. But he definitely was there, and he definitely invited Mondrick on a hunt. And what do we know about Colin? Have we seen a hunt before? And does Colin go to it? No.
It
And
seems
didn't
like
Penelope go?
well, because he's a third brother. He's not a
Well,
lord.
not even third brother. I just think Colin is not the kind that would go out and just kill an
Kill
animal.
anything. No, he's too sensitive for that. No, nor
So
would
yeah,
nor would Benedict. Because I mean, the day that
and I think that's why Eloise is a better shot than her brothers because she really is a better shot than Antony
well, because
because
she's a little
Antony
more
sucks.
analytical. She is
Yeah,
less in her
but
feels.
Benedict and Colin do not want to. I mean, target practice is different, but I really
Yeah,
do think they would not want to kill an
I
animal.
really do think
I
you went
really don't.
real
I was
southern there.
well, I was wiping my nose. I really don't think that they would want to kill an animal, and I
No.
think that in season 2, when Eloise says he's leaving, Penelope is super surprised. Like, you're joining the men on the hunt. Like, what?
Hmm.
Who are you? I think it was like that's a surprise. And so I don't think Colin would be invited on this hunt. I really do think that Fife is trying to get Will Mondrick away from the influence of the Bridgertons slash make Colin's life a little bit harder.
Well, I mean, everyone's trying to kind of spread their influence over the new couple because we hear that invitations for Will and Alice are coming in thick and fast in the beginning at least,
Mm-hmm.
before the whole bar situation goes down. But in this conversation, we have got Will and Alice, and Will for the first time is kind of feeling like he's fitting in, but at the same time they're yearning for the peace of their old life. So they're very much at this point stuck in between the peace of getting like feeling like they can make decisions about their own life and the affluence that they have been afforded in he being named Lord of the house. Not that we know what Lord he is. We don't know like what his title would be. Do
Yeah, we
we?
don't know what the time.
Actually,
No,
no, we do.
is he Baron?
They don't tell us how high up he is, but I presume it'd be lower standing, but the house is rather affluent, so it's hard.
There's a lot of estate to it. That there's a lot of yard.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna have to look
But
into
what
this
I find,
actually.
and side stories play into the main story. This is all Colin and Penelope are fighting that they're on that precipice of
Yeah.
how much do they follow society versus following their own heart and following what they want. And what parts of themselves do they share, what parts don't they? And Will and Alice are going through the same thing. It's like
Yeah.
we know who we are.
Yeah.
They knew who they were, and it wasn't that he was a boxer turned club owner. It wasn't that she was a housewife turned club owner's assistant manager. You know what I mean? Like they knew who they were as people. They knew who they were as a couple. They have their core values. And that's why she can tell Colin, I don't think you did anything weird. I think it was gallant. I think it's the mark of
Yeah.
a good friend. They know who they are. And in this moment, we're seeing like they're going to have to choose between the they that they know they are and the they think they have to be part of the ton.
Hmm.
And it's actually Danbury who tells them you can kind of be both, but they are seeing
Well,
it as an either or
he
situation, just like Colin and Penelope are seeing it as
he
an
kind of
either or
runs.
situation.
Will kind of tries to run with it a little bit. Will says, "What is the rule? We can do whatever we want," and I think he kind of forgets his place.
He perceived what Benedict said from Benedict's point of view. Benedict thinks he can do
Oh,
whatever he wants
he does.
because he plays the game and what he wants to do, he keeps on the down low.
Well,
Will's not trying to keep it on the down low.
what a perfect transition for me because my next note is about Benedict. You know what? Benedict has a bit of a gumpy walk and I live for it. Like he's a little bit of an awkward sausage, but he's walking around this event. And you know what?
It's
It
those
actually
pants.
I know it must actually
These are
be
the pants that
ripped, yes. So it must actually be like quite we really do see that flip in gender roles because Benedict is walking around nervously looking and then he sees the Stowells. He is actively like he can't go anywhere and feel at
He's
ease.
like the Roadrunner in their Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah. And so he's like actively looking around, where are they? Where are they? And he's like kind of skulking, his shoulders are down, his head's down, like, please don't notice me, as if I'm not like some giant human being that you can notice from a mile away. My sex appeal isn't like exuded across an entire balloon event, but that's fine. So he ducks into the Hawkins balloon explanation tents, what I'm
The
going to go for,
lecture. Yeah.
the
The
lecture.
engineering lecture. This is the engineering lecture of how the
That
balloon
is
works.
way more succinct than what I was saying. Thank you. So Remington and Stanton are kind of belittling Lord Hawkins and the balloon. Well, I have boats that can do that, and I can steer them. They're kind of they're belittling, and I love that we have. Well, I mean, before this point, we've got Benedict who comes in
Oh,
and
that
and
was
he
not
makes.
Stanton. That's Lord Cho.
You know what? I went back 4 times and I tried to cross-reference what outfit it was, and I'm sure
It's
it was.
Lord Cho.
I looked 4 times, I swear. And I put Cho and then
Because
I
Stanton and Wilding walk in and they stay the whole time talking to Colin. That's not
hmm,
Stanton in there. It's Lord
it's
Cho.
okay. I looked like 4 times. They do look remarkably similar and they're dressed in
They
like
do. And they're
nearly
dressed
ident
similar.
they're dressed in nearly identical because I was like, oh, that's the outfit that Stanton was wearing. So it must be Stanton. I looked at the outfit in my picture that I had. That was the outfit. I put
Mm-hmm.
Stanton. I had Cho and then I changed it. But anyway, Lord Cho, and I was doing so well with getting the names right. Okay, I was so close. But
Hey,
Benedict
you
walks
gave me
in.
Garrett. You gave me Garrett. I'm
Thanks.
going with that.
Thanks. I was doing so well. So Benedict walks in and he makes a quip about, basically
Hiding
that
from the
that he's
ladies.
that he's seeking refuge in the tent from the mamas of the ton. And then he looks over and he's like, "Oh, no." And I don't know that a lady, even though she was widowed, I don't know that a lady could be in there with 50 odd other men
Well,
with
that's the thing. Most women of the ton would never have gone in there. It would have been,
but they seem to be
and
completely at ease with her there.
no, they were not at ease. They were ignoring her.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Not a single man acknowledged her. Not it's kind of like Araminta when Portia
Yes.
came
Yeah,
back
yeah, yeah.
into society at the beginning of season
Yeah.
2. Like she did not speak directly to Portia, but she spoke to Portia through
Yes.
Cressida
Yeah.
standing there.
Yeah.
Like she gave her the cut and they're giving her the cut. They're not talking to her. And she has to elbow her way in and kind of
Yeah.
put them all in their place.
So what I noticed
And I
very
think that's why
early,
he was attracted to her, if he's going to be fluid, is the fact that she is a woman who's in her mask.
well, very much, and I will get into that. So basically, what I realized very, very early on, when we first met Lady Tilly, before season 2 dropped of episode season 3 part 2 dropped, I actually put up a post on the main Bridgerton page with a comparison between the Baroness from The Sound of Music and Lady Tilly, because I think that is very much who they have taken. Each character in the series that has a notable presence in the show, they are always sculpted after someone. And I think the fact that Lady Tilly is a very outspoken, a very strong female character who was searching, not searching for a husband, but like eventually she does end up falling for Benedict, kind of like Lady, the Baroness. She was never in love with.
She was not. She got the captain because she was not actively pursuing. She was
Hmm,
not actively looking like she was looking for a husband or anything
yeah,
like that.
they
And
they
she
very
didn't
much were the same.
Yeah, she did not. In the end, I think she did have affection for him, but she didn't want his whole life. Like
No.
Benedict has all the siblings. I think Lady Tilly fit in at the party enough, but she didn't really.
She didn't enjoy
It,
conversing with them.
she only interacted with Kate, and Kate and her, I think, would be great friends. But
Yes.
she didn't talk to his mother. She didn't. They stood behind Colin and Penelope,
I
but
think that's
she did
because
not interact with them.
Violet does not want to get attached to people that she knows aren't around for a long time.
I think Benedict has clocked how Violet is very much involved with her daughters, and now Lord Anderson is present, and he figured that Tilly would be present but invisible.
I'm surprised that he is as brazen to bring a woman of marriageable
Oh,
prospect
an
in front of his
older
son.
woman, an older
Yeah,
widow, when
yeah,
he's never been married once. I
yeah.
think that's brass balls, is what that
He's
is.
brazen. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think in this moment we
But
could
I do
all.
want to say in this moment, I love that they were able to give Remington more time.
Yes,
And we got to see him not just be a giddy, gossipy dude. We got to, I mean, granted, he wasn't open minded to engineering and to,
but he did have his own perspectives, and he was proud about them.
and he did not shy away from speaking them in a room of
Yes,
people where he would have
able
potentially
bodies.
felt other. He
Yeah.
did not feel other. He felt like he was one of the group. And I
Yes.
loved this scene for that. And
He was
also
just another lord.
we don't really get a lot of Lord Cho having lines and stuff. So I really
Mhm.
like that he had his moment here too.
Even though one may have confused him.
Sorry, Lord Cho.
It's not my fault.
Emma will never get you confused with Lord Stanton, I hope.
Yes.
Miss
So,
Kenworthy.
Miss Kenworthy. So, without even knowing, so Lady Tilly speaks up and basically tells the boys, you're filling this room with hot air. Like, you're all gas, you're all talking shit. Pipe down, let the I came here to listen to the expert speak. I don't want to hear you guys throwing about your uneducated opinions on something that you have no study in.
Yeah.
So
Let's let the educated people talk about the subject they know about and you keep your mouth shut.
yeah.
That's advice some people could use.
Yes. So it was quite really like I really enjoyed the moment.
That
And
was not the Bridgerton fandom I was sending that out to. I'm not insulting our listeners at
no,
all.
no, no, I
That's
knew
straight
that.
up,
I
straight
knew
up others.
others. But Benedict gets even more brazen here. He does not know Lady Tilly's circumstance. He doesn't
At
know.
all.
He doesn't know if she is currently married, if she's widowed, if she's well, I think he presumes she's not unmarried, because she's in a room full of men unchaperoned. That would just not happen.
Right.
Whereas for a widow, I remember from Francesca's book that she was allowed a fair amount more space than if she had been never married, because obviously her virtue was already gone. But I do remember that Violet wouldn't allow Michael and Francesca in a room together alone because she was still technically unmarried. But where am I up to? I know. Oh, yes. So without knowing any of her circumstances whatsoever, Benedict starts talking to her about passions. I do love learning about the passion of others. And firstly, it reminded me very much of, I said his name before, uh, the first person that is kind of has a conversation, Lord Petrie, but Petrie, Lord
Oh
Petrie,
yeah,
you know,
about the music, the
yeah,
appassionata,
yeah.
yeah.
It just reminded me the same, except this one is kind of different in the
Received.
received. It is received.
Fran is like, I'm out, dude.
So there's a theory in Harry Met Your Mother called the Doppler Dharma effect, and it is two people can do the exact same thing. One is going to come up across as a romantic gesture, a grand gesture. The other one is going to come across as a Jeffrey Dahmer, you're trying to
Creepy
murder
dude.
me,
Yeah.
creepy dude. So it's the Doppler Dharma effect, and
And
it is
perfect
all about how it's
example.
received.
I this whole week while Smaug's been in the state,
Hmm.
I've been like wanting him to just show up at my house. Like,
Yes.
just please show up at my house. But we already know that there's people that I'm like, why would you don't show up to my house? Like,
Yeah.
they did it. And I was like, and I had to think about that this week. Like, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it is all about how it is received.
How it would
Yes.
be received. Yes.
So, speaking of Francesca's love interests, Brimsley goes and fetches Francesca. I love that Granny D is like, I'm Granny. I'm going to come along for the ride because Violet and Lady Danbury follow along. So Granny D is like, I'm going to go see my granddaughter, my
Lady
propsy
Danbury
granddaughter.
is she is so this season like
She is meddling. She's like, I'm one of them.
she's not even meddling. She is just part of the family. The whole thing with her and Benedict, it's not is that this other ball? No, it's at Stowell House. Her and Benedict at Stowell House and that whole conversation and walking in with them at Stowell House and now walking up to the Queen. I mean, granted, her and the Queen are friends, but Francesca was summoned, right? Which means her mother has to come.
Yeah.
Actually, it should have been Benedict, but nobody could find him.
Yeah. He's skulking around.
And Danbury's, and this is the first time. This is why the Queen doesn't kick Danbury out at the wedding breakfast when she says only the Bridgertons can stay, because Danbury has already proven to her when the Bridgertons are summoned, I will be there.
You know what? I kind of wish that we saw, because we only ever saw the Queen in Queen Charlotte, we only ever saw the Queen confiding in Lady Danbury, but Lady Danbury never felt that she could do the same in return because of the Queen's status. I really wish that she didn't disclose who, but I do wish that she had disclosed
I
what she had
almost
gone
think
through. I think that
I
it
almost
would
think
have
she may
made,
have.
well, I wish we got it on camera. I wish that we saw,
I think we will in season 4 though.
because
I think
obviously the
if
Queen
the
talks about quite frequently, if you had this issue, you could have come to me and I would have fixed it for you. But Lady Danbury doesn't know how to allow anyone else. She is so used to having to scheme and connive and go
Mhm.
through back alleys around her husband and make it seem like his idea. And she's so used to having to manipulate every situation that she doesn't know how to have a true honest friendship with the Queen, because she thinks, oh well, even though she is my friend or I am her friend, she is still my queen. I can't have the same affections for her as she has for me. Like, I am her confidant, she is not my confidant.
Right, but I think that it's something we're going to see because
I
we know
hope.
in season 2, as Kate and Edwina are in her house and they're picking up things, like they're looking at things, and remember the Queen said this, that's from my
Mm-mm.
travels, or no, it was Violet, those are things from my travels, remember, in Queen Charlotte,
Yeah.
these are things from my travels, so we know Danbury's traveled, right? And we are coming into a season about an illegitimate child. So we're
Hmm.
going to have another side stories play in. So I think somebody is going to end up being an illegitimate child. And it's already been, the rumors have been put out there that Alice, the reason
Yes.
Danbury is all over Alice is because Alice is the illegitimate child of her and Lord
Yeah.
Ledger. And I think skin
I,
tone works.
yeah.
But what if she did and she confided in the Queen, and the Queen she could go to another estate, because she
Okay.
has to confine somewhere, and she comes
Well,
back with all these things from
it'll be
travels.
interesting if we get another maybe I don't want another Queen Charlotte. I emotionally cannot handle watching his descent even further. I cannot do it. Please do not do it to me.
Mm-mm.
But I do hope that we get either just a Danbury, a
A Danbury or a
I
Violet, yeah.
Danbury Violet, or I will even settle for Portia. I want the backstories. But let's move on. And I mean, we kind of already kind of discussed the Lord Samudali in an earlier portion. So I think that we can move on to Prudence and Danky and her windswept appearance.
Well, and here I think we see another kind of gender swapping. He's more like the lady. He's very concerned about his clothing, his ensemble, and he's concerned, like she's the one who's concerned about anybody seeing them, which would be the man in the situation in
Yeah.
the ton,
Yeah.
because they don't want to have to marry
Well,
someone, even
because
though
it's
they're already
it's not a
married.
woman's woman, like the man is the head of the house, and therefore he is the one that has to be concerned with his standing in society more so than a female, because I think the man is the one who has to deal with and have business dealings with the other lords. So if they are seen in bad society, like we see with Lord Cowper, it kind of can affect their business arrangements as well.
Yeah, and her dress is very structured and everything, and he's very dandy like, so I think she's like the masculine in the
Should we just
relationship,
call him Dandelion?
plus she's taller and he's shorter and a little more effeminate, so I think that this whole situation is, one, it's very cute, he adores her and she's starting to warm up to him and feel his adoration and attraction, but she
Yeah.
still is uncomfortable with it and she doesn't
She doesn't
understand it.
know how to accept praise because,
Yeah,
he talks about how
she can't
beautiful
even
she is
recognize
windswept.
a
And she's like,
compliment.
is that a compliment? Like,
Yeah,
why are you complimenting me for?
that's very much your parenting, Portia
Yes.
Featherington.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
kids, if your kids come to you and say
Yeah.
that, don't you dare dismiss them.
Yeah. So they start making out like teenagers. Well, I mean, they probably are still teenagers or very, very early 20s at the very most. They
They're
are early
early 20s,
20s.
but they're
Yeah.
making out like a 10-year-old.
I know.
They're little kissing. It's like two 10-year-olds behind the tent, like
It's very much how your kid comes up to kiss you, like the full blown like puckered like
a boy and
goldfish.
a girl running off, like, yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of
Yeah.
sweet in a way. Like
Like a
we've got
preteen, not even a pubescent. This is a
we've
preteen kiss. Yeah.
yeah, we've got enough spice this season that like I'm fine with their kind of awkward. I could definitely see your point that they could both be LGBTQI somewhere on that spectrum of things. We'll see her kind of, but we won't get to see because they're not they're not cast to come back
They're
next
not
season, which
in.
is
And I don't think that was, I think they kind of did that as
they've
like
done their
a
story. It's done.
possibility. But
Yeah.
I think that they ended it well, and
There's a
Prudence
possibility.
Prudence grew, and Prudence understood love, right?
Yeah.
So she started recognizing that she was loved and she was appreciated for who she was.
Yeah.
But she wasn't comfortable with it either. And I think this is how, this is the example, the context that we get so that we can understand Penelope.
Mm.
Why Penelope would say, and I, of course, now that we have moments, I can just
Yes.
go
I
in and
don't.
click.
Thanks.
I clicked my moment for the first time after setting them. And I watched the carriage scene last night, and I noticed like when, and we've talked about before, like when she says, "But Colin, we are friends," like that's just all the voices that have said it in the
Yeah.
past just coming out of her mouth in that moment because she's having cognitive dissonance. And when he says, "Oh, I'm sorry," like, I don't know what I was thinking. Look at her face. Like she is just like, oh, he's really hurt. He really
Yeah.
meant it. Like she can't believe it. And that's what gives her the courage to say she wants to be more than friends, is the fact that he's actually hurt by her words. And just, we have to take Prudence and Dankworth and their growth, their
I have to be across town
relationships.
in 22 minutes, Patty.
Well, my son is already sitting at the IHOP. He's been off work since 6 o'clock.
Oh
I told
no.
him, I said, go get something at the IHOP and I will walk in and pay for it.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot about him. All right, let's wrap this up. Okay, so the last few bits is I wanted to mention about the balloon one more time. So we kind of knew that this was coming because before Denki and Prudence start making out, we see the winds blowing through, we see all the pamphlets kind of flutter away and the balloons kind of shaking violently side to side. So it was kind of a foreshadowing before we even got to that point. And then
right. And Colin asking the guys, like, is this normal?
And then Prudence is
and
kind
that
of
shows
like,
his intelligence compared to theirs, because
yeah,
they're not
he's just,
thinking anything
yeah,
of it, and he's just like, he's problem solver, like he's the chess
yeah,
player, he's seeing a few steps ahead. And
yeah,
I think that that's the example we get of him, like, oh, so most of his thoughts are in his head, but he's always thinking 2 steps ahead. So every
yeah,
time you see Colin in the moment, that shit,
yeah.
he's already figured that out.
Well, and we already talked about like, but you said that Benedict was the last one to join that crew, and I know why now. Benedict was I spied where Benedict was. Benedict had just left Hawkins' tent, and he's kind of like slowly walking towards the area. He comes into scene when Colin starts running. And that's why he's the last one to arrive, because he was only just kind of coming into this area when it all went down. And that's why he's the last one to arrive. But there's so many other people. Like, I get that if they have any extras kind of join in, then they've got to give them more pay and everything. So they want to keep it to the
Only
main
if they
characters
say
only.
something, and
Yeah.
they didn't want somebody to say something in the moment that they would have to pay extra, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because if they said something and that's the best take, then they have to take that as a line,
so
and they have to pay them more money.
It does annoy me that they didn't have anyone else even try to help, but I do understand the logistics of the filming side of things. Why? And then lastly,
we already know Fife is there. We know Garrett is there. We know all of those men
they're
in
not
the
in
tent
screen.
are there.
They're not in screen. They're in the tent.
I know, but the only people that come are people that know Colin.
I looked in the crowds very specifically in this film scene yesterday, and no one else that we are familiar with is in that from the Queen all the way around.
Right, but I'm still saying that, like, Colin can command. The whole point of this was that he's good in an emergency and he can command when he needs to. And we see what he was probably doing on his travels, which, like Prince Eric in The Little Mermaid, he was on a boat, he was on a ship.
I'm on a boat.
But the only people that listen to him are those that know him, and they know that when he's acting like that, he's serious, right?
Let me just say though, Colin is very heroic in this scene. He potentially saved people's lives. He saved things getting destroyed. The Queen is privy to the entire thing. Why do we not have the Queen inviting Colin up to congratulate him, to thank him herself? Because that is her people that he saved. Her guards were all there. They were standing right there. They
Mhm.
watched the whole entire thing. Yes, their main point is
But
to
from their standpoint, though, by the time they stood up, all the other men had already run up there. So they see all the
yeah.
men doing it.
But
And
what
she
I'm
probably didn't want to deal with that many.
But what I mean is, I do think that we should have had, like, we talk about how Luke Newton should have gotten his flowers this season. This could have been one
Mhm.
of those scenes that was Luke centric, that it should have been Penelope didn't acknowledge that I saved her because she had Lord Dibbling and that took away from me. But the Queen still acknowledged it. He should have
But
gotten some
because
acknowledgement.
we have all the context of all of their looks across ballrooms to know that she did thank him. She acknowledged
I
that he
know.
saved her. He acknowledged that he did that for her in
Yes.
that look. They had a really long conversation in a five
But
second look.
we know how bored that the queen is for
Yes.
seasons. She's bored. She misses her husband. Nothing gives her a thrill anymore. She is absolutely thrilled in this moment. The balloon goes off. Colin's commanding people, and she stands up and she's gasping and oh, like this is exciting. This is what I like. This is something to make me feel something again. And I think that she would have very, very much congratulated him on that. I think she would have said, well done, commanding a slurry
Mhm.
of men. Well done for seeing what others could not see. Well done
Well,
for for controlling the situation and potentially saving people. She didn't do
Well, and
any of
here's
that.
my thing. Her memory is also very short when it comes to her people. And what if at the next event that she attends, which is her own ball, she had intended to
Mhm.
say something? He doesn't show up till the very bitter end.
But I
And
like
by that
even
time, she's ticked off.
even when she's going through at the at the wedding breakfast and she's acknowledging all the Bridgertons, it could have even just been, and Mr. Colin Bridgerton, let me just say, well done on your save. Like, I know that I'm here for this other
But
thing, but I also
I think that plays into his whole character arc though. He's
unseen,
not
unseen.
doing it for accolades, and he is completely just as invisible. He
Yeah.
saved lives. He made this big exciting well, he didn't make it, the wind did,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
he saved the day. He's the star. And the only people that notice are the insipid little chits.
Yeah.
The little chits are the only ones that notice. And I mean, even his friends, only Will is the one that said, good job, Bridgerton.
Yes.
All the other
Yeah.
guys were like, why aren't they coming
Yeah.
after me? I helped you. I was a part of it. Like,
Yeah.
what did you do, dude? Really?
You were just the brawn, as
Mhm.
Lady Tilly would.
I gave
Just the
you a
muscle.
job. I handed you my coat. Why did my suede coat end up on the ground there, dude?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we've got our families waiting for us. So we are going to wrap it up for today, gentle listeners. We will leave it there and continue on next week's episode where we will talk Hawkins Ball side stories. If you have anything in particular you would like us to cover or any Bridgerton knowledge you would like to share, please head to our Facebook page, The Ladies Bridgerton. And if you're enjoying our podcast, please remember to click the follow button on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you are listening.
Once again, I was like, I actually remembered.
You
I
told me
actually
to remind
remembered.
you.
I know. I actually remember though. And once again, thank you for listening to the musings of two mad women
Yours truly, Tash the Kiwi.
and Patty.